Chapter 1. The Echoes of a Quiet Life. Richard was a man made of salt air and silence. For 5 years he had lived in this quiet beach house on Cape Cod, each day a mirror of the last. He was 62, a number that felt as heavy and immovable as the granite cliffs. Every morning the ritual was the same: a steaming cup of coffee, the chill of the morning air, and the endless, mesmerizing rhythm of the waves. He would sit on the porch, a ghost in his own life, and the only thing that felt real was the ocean. The house was quiet, yes, but it was more than that. It was deafening. Every creak of a floorboard, every sigh of the wind felt like a direct conversation with the absence of his wife, the unfillable hole left by her passing. He had become a master of small, solitary routines. Walks along the pier where laughter of families and couples felt like a foreign language. Days spent reading old letters, not for the words, but for the ghost of her handwriting. He would fish, a pointless, silent activity, never caring if he caught anything, because what was the point of a good catch if you had no one to share it with? His life had become a series of footnotes, memories from a book that was already closed. Then, a piece of paper in his mailbox changed everything. It was a flyer for the local senior community center. Volunteer, make a difference, meet new friends. He almost threw it away. The very thought of socializing felt like a physical burden, a marathon he had no energy to run. What did he have to offer? He had been hiding from life for so long, he wasn't sure he remembered how to be a part of it. But something, some tiny rebellious part of his soul, insisted he go. Maybe it was a flicker of hope, a desperate need to remind himself he was more than a living memory. On that first day, she walked into the room, and the air itself seemed to shift. Elena, 59, with a smile that was not just radiant, but mischievous. She had a glint in her eyes that told him she knew things, that she had lived. She came from Florida, a place of sunshine and second chances. She met his handshake with a firm, warm grip and said the words that would haunt him, in the best possible way. "Don't tell me you've been hiding from life all these years." He chuckled, a sound that felt rusty and unfamiliar. "I'm cautious," he said. She just tilted her head, her smile unwavering. "Caution is overrated," she said. "Sometimes you just have to jump in." Over the next few weeks, a routine began to form, one that wasn't born of grief, but of joy. They worked together, organizing games, serving community lunches, sharing stories. He loved the way she gestured wildly when she told a story, her hands painting pictures in the air. He was a man coming back to life, slowly, gently. But a fear, a familiar ghost, lingered, his children. Megan and Paul had always been overly protective of his widowhood. He could already hear the disapproval in their voices, the way they would see this not as a new beginning, but as a betrayal of their mother. He was afraid of their judgment, afraid of them seeing him happy with someone else. Chapter 2. Love under the sun and a daughter's fear as spring faded into early summer. Their world expanded beyond the community center. They walked the beach at dawn, their feet sinking into the cool sand, debating whether the tides moved faster than memory. One morning, she challenged him to a race along the pier. His body protested, his joints a symphony of creaks and groans, but he ran, and he lost. They collapsed on a bench, breathless, laughing until their sides ached. In that moment, Richard felt not 62 but 26. He felt alive. Evenings were for cooking. The kitchen, once a sterile, silent room, filled with the aroma of garlic and lemon. Elena insisted on teaching him her grandmother's shrimp scampi recipe. He had almost forgotten the simple pleasure of companionship, of someone who could make the most ordinary moments feel like an event. He realized that for 5 years he had been living in a black and white movie, and Elena had just arrived with a bucket of paint. Then Megan came to visit. He saw the shift in her eyes the moment she arrived. She noticed the small changes, the way he smiled more genuinely, the animated way he spoke, the way he lingered on the porch after sunset. no longer just a solitary figure. One afternoon she sat him down at the kitchen table, her voice gentle but firm. "Dad," she said, "something's happening. Is there a woman?" His stomach clenched. He was caught between a need to protect this fragile new happiness and a desperate need to be honest with his daughter. "Her name is Elena," he said. We've been spending time together." The light in Megan's eyes went out. "Dad, she's not Mom. You can't just replace her. You're forgetting everything we've lost." The words hit him like a physical blow. He wanted to shout, to make her understand that this wasn't about forgetting, but about remembering how to live. How could he explain that he wasn't replacing Susan, he was simply choosing not to die with her? That the truest tribute to a loved one is not to let your own life wither, but to live it fully. That his heart was big enough to hold both the love he had for his wife and the hope he felt for his future. But the words failed him. That night, he walked along the cliffs near his house, the ocean crashing below. He felt a familiar, crushing weight of guilt. Elena joined him, and they stood in silence, her presence a quiet comfort. She knew what he was feeling without him having to say a word. "Richard," she said softly, her voice carrying on the wind, "life is too short to live in someone else's shadow. We have a chance to be happy now. Don't waste it." He looked at the horizon, watching the sun begin its beautiful descent. He thought of Susan, her laugh, the feel of her hand in his. The memories were there, sharp and clear, but now, for the first time, they were not a cage. They were a part of him. He felt a different stirring, one he hadn't felt in years, the quiet, brave possibility of moving forward without guilt. Chapter 3. The sunset decision and the wisdom of a second chance. Weeks passed, and the tension remained. A palpable fog in the air. Finally, Richard knew he had to face it head on. He invited Megan and Paul for dinner, and he spoke from the heart. He didn't make excuses or apologize. His voice was steady, filled with a new kind of conviction. "Elena has brought me back to life," he said, the words full of a raw, beautiful honesty. "I didn't know I could feel this way again. I love her company, her laughter, and I want to explore this, even at my age. It's not a betrayal of your mother. It's a celebration of life." Megan's eyes filled with tears, and Paul's jaw was tight with emotion. The silence was long and heavy, but this time it was different. It wasn't the silence of grief, but the silence of understanding. Slowly, a nod from Megan, then from Paul. They might not have been fully on board, but they saw the light in their father's eyes. They saw that his happiness was worth more than their comfort. They understood that love doesn't have an expiration date, and grief doesn't have to be a life sentence. That evening, as the sun dipped into the Atlantic, painting the sky with a breathtaking canvas of pink, gold, and fire orange, Richard and Elena walked along the pier. The wind carried the scent of salt and a new, exhilarating possibility. They stopped, hand in hand, and watched the magnificent spectacle. They let the moment stretch, timeless and perfect. Richard squeezed her hand. "Maybe we don't get many sunsets left," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But the ones we have will make them count." Elena smiled, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "Then let's watch every one of them together." As night fell and the first stars began to pierce the dark sky, Richard looked at the woman beside him. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was filled with a quiet sense of triumph. Life had given him an unexpected, beautiful gift. Courage. The courage to love again. The courage to be seen. The courage to live. He had learned that love and adventure weren't just for the young. They were for anyone brave enough to believe in a second chance, no matter their age.